A soldier's last hope, the loyal dog who taught him to live again. Germany, 1947. The war had ended 2 years ago, but its shadow lingered like the stench of smoke clinging to stone. In the village of Bruckfeld, only a handful of residents had returned. The rest were gone scattered, dead, or swallowed by cities in the chaos of rebuilding. Walter Schneider walked with a limp and carried the burden of 53 hard years in his weathered face. A former sergeant in the Wehrmacht, he had survived the Russian front, a French prison camp, and now this, the quiet desolation of his home village. His house was gone obliterated in the bombing of 45. His wife, Elsa, and their only son, Henrik, had perished in the fire. He had received the letter 6 months into captivity. He had read it once, then burned it. Since then, Walter had spoken little and smiled never. He lived in the remains of an old schoolhouse, sleeping on a cot made from scrap metal and listening to the rats scratch the walls at night. The village was a skeleton. Shops stood with hollow windows. Gardens were wild with weeds. The church bell tower had crumbled into its nave. And yet, Walter came back not to reclaim anything, but because it was the only place he had once belonged. Each morning, he walked the village perimeter, boots crunching over broken glass and gravel. It was not for protection. He was too tired for fear. It was habit, a soldier's routine. It gave shape to otherwise formless days. One cold morning, as frost clung to the rusted railings of the old train station, Walter heard something, a sound he hadn't heard in months. A whimper. He paused, listening. Then it came again from beneath a collapsed bench beneath the station's shattered roof. He crouched, his joints aching, and pulled away a board. There, shivering and covered in filth, was a dog, a German shepherd. Its ribs jutted out like a skeleton's, but its eyes were alert. "Now, was haben wir denn da?" Walter murmured. The dog didn't growl. It didn't move. Walter reached into his coat and tore a piece of the crusted bread he'd saved from breakfast. He offered it. The dog sniffed, then inched forward and took the bread from his hand with trembling jaws. Walter leaned back on his heels. A soldier too, eh? He recognized the posture, the alertness, the way the dog had waited for a command. "Higher," he said softly. The dog took one step forward. "Come." The shepherd limped toward him and sat at his feet. Walter looked around at the silence and ruin of the station. "You're not the only one left behind." Walter named the dog Franz, after a comrade who had died near Leningrad. It seemed fitting. Franz, the real one, had been loyal, clever, and quiet, just like the dog. Franz followed Walter home to the schoolhouse and curled up in the corner without needing invitation. That night, for the first time in years, Walter shared his blanket. The dog pressed against him, warm and breathing. Walter did not sleep well, but he slept. Over the weeks that followed, they became inseparable. Walter discovered quickly that Franz had been a military dog. He responded to commands in clipped German, stood at attention, and even patrolled the perimeter of their shelter with near-professional discipline. In Franz, Walter saw a reflection of himself trained, discarded, surviving on instinct and memory. It was Franz who first drew the attention of the village children. On a spring afternoon, As Walter chopped wood near the well, 3 children approached, watching from a distance. One girl called out, "Is he dangerous?" Walter looked up. The children were thin, shoeless, and wary. Orphans, no doubt. "He's loyal," Walter replied. He gave a hand signal. Franz sat, then lay down. The children inched closer. The smallest boy, no more than 6, reached out a tentative hand. Franz sniffed it, then licked it. The boy giggled. After that, they came more often. First just to see the dog, then to talk. Walter didn't encourage it, but he didn't turn them away either. He taught them how to feed Franz, how to give him commands. One girl, Clara, said, "You were a soldier." Like him, Walter nodded. "Too long ago. Did you kill anyone?" He didn't answer. But he came to notice the way Franz would position himself between the children and danger-stray dogs, fallen beans, even loud noises. Always alert, always watching. One evening, Clara lingered as the others left. She looked up at Walter and asked, "Why do you live alone?" He didn't know what to say, so she said it for him. "Franz doesn't let you be alone." She was right. By late summer, the children were staying longer. Walter had scrounged enough supplies to make simple meals stew from roots and potatoes, tea brewed from dried herbs. He noticed how the children lingered at dusk, hesitating to return to whatever corner of ruin they called home. So he made a decision. He cleaned out the school's second room. He found straw and old blankets. He laid out a row of places to sleep. He didn't call it anything. He just did it. The next night, 3 children stayed, then 5, then 8. Frau Berger, the village's aging baker, began sending over stale loaves. A young widow named Lot brought vegetables from her garden. Word spread. People who had nothing still found something to give. And at the center of it all, Walter stood still gruff, still quiet, but no longer closed. Franz, now healthier and strong, became guardian of the orphan house. The children adored him. They made a collar from blue ribbon. They called him Herr Franz. One day, a man from the city came to Bruckfeld. He was looking to gather orphans for transport to Kossel. Walter listened to his proposal, then said simply, "They have a home." The man looked at the broken windows and makeshift beds. Walter pointed to the children playing with Franz in the yard. Not a building, a home. And the man, to his credit, understood. The village council gave their blessing. The schoolhouse became an official shelter. Walter never took the title of director. He simply remained Herr Schneider. But to the children, he was something more. He taught them how to build, how to plant, how to listen. He told them stories not of war, but of peace, of stars, of rivers, of dogs who never left your side. It was under a willow tree, on the edge of the village, that Franz began to slow. He no longer ran to greet the children. He slept more. He stopped eating. Walter knew. Dogs don't tell you. They show you. One morning, Franz did not rise. Walter sat beside him, surrounded by silence. "You were more than a dog," he whispered. "You were a reminder of who I was, who I could be again." Franz gave one small wag of his tail, and then he was still. They buried him beneath the willow. All the children helped dig. Clara placed the ribbon collar on the grave. Lot sang a hymn. Walter said nothing. He simply stood, hands trembling. That night, the children gathered around him. Clara climbed onto his lap. "He was the first thing I loved after the bombs," she said. Walter nodded. "He brought us to you," she added. "No," Walter said at last. "He brought me to you." Years later, when Walter passed away in his sleep, the children now grown buried him beside Franz. The grave marker bore no military rank, only a name and one word beneath it: friend.